Hey, what's up, guys? I decided to make another video, this time on five of Timothy Zahn's Star Wars books, Legends books. That is the Heir to the Empire trilogy, the Hand of Thorn duology, and Survivor's Quest. I was listening to them on audiobook, so I don't have anything physical. I mean, I do. I have a copy of Heir to the Empire. A few years ago, I was reading the books, and I got up to Darksaber, I think, and then I kind of fell off, but I saw them on Audible, and I was like, okay, this seems like something I really want to check out. First of all, by the way, different background. I'm in the living room because I was playing. I got a VR headset, so I was playing in here. Brought the chair in here. Didn't want to bring it back, just to bring it back in like after it's done charging. So anyway, but I really enjoyed these books. I'm not a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I don't really like the sequel trilogy. I'm not gonna, if you like it, good for you. I just don't. But So I decided to check these out and I started listening to an audiobook. At first I started listening to what is it? Dark Lord Rising, the you know, uh book set after episode 3, and then I was like, "You know what? Let me jump back into this, check this out." And I really enjoyed him. The guy who does it, I think his name is Jonathan Davis. If I like am saying it wrong, I'm thinking of someone else's name, but he is a fucking artist, man. Like his voice acting is great. Like female characters are a bit meh, but that's usually pretty hard for male voice actors to do. I would just love if they would get two, like one for male voices, one for female. But he does really good even with that. But like his Han Solo voice, his I don't know about Luke because I haven't seen the movies in a minute. Like I need to rewatch them, but I'm waiting to get them physically before I rewatch them. But yeah, so like that, his Anakin Skywalker voice, he voices in Dark Lord Rising, um, but especially I have to mention his Lando Calrissian is fucking crazy, dude. Like that sounds exactly like Billy D. Williams, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, holy shit, like that is crazy how good that was. But and in these, I highly recommend the audiobooks in the first place because they have like added music, sound effects, um, just stuff like that where it makes shit like hit harder. It's like, okay, that's clean. He also does a really good C3PO. They have like filters and stuff and everything like that. So he does a lot of good voices, pretty accurate from what I can remember. Like his Sidious is great too. Everything like that is really good. But anyway, getting back into it, you know, like I said, I don't really like the sequel trilogy, so I wanted to go back and listen to these books because I remember really enjoying them. And I loved them. They're really good. It's the first three are absolute masterpieces. Each one of them is very good. Feels like a movie. Feels like the original trilogy, like if they made six movies. But I just thought that they were extremely good. Every plot point, like they ended up like a kind of cliffhangerous thing where you're like, oh, I want to continue with that. But then they go to something else. And when you're kind of like, like, man, I don't want to, I'm interested in this. They immediately drag you in with like the other storylines. So you're like, oh shit, I'm jumping here, here, here. And they're all interesting. And that's for all three books. And the addition of the new characters is really well done, and also using characters like Wedge Antilles, Squadron, and General Bell Iblis is pretty good. Just having the characters from the movies, it doesn't fit with the prequels because this was in the 90s before the prequels. And especially with like cloning and stuff, where they cloned this Jedi Master Joruus Sabaoth. But I thought that like that was actually pretty interesting, and I think like when you really think about it, it would have been cool to actually see more clones of like different people and clones of Jedi and stuff like that. I just think that is like an interesting idea that we didn't see. Although I absolutely love like the Clone Wars and all that stuff, like the show, the prequels of them all. But I just thought like that was kind of interesting. Like just different clones would have been cool. But um, so like some stuff like that doesn't fit. But other than that, it's absolutely great. Probably my favorite storyline was just like um, at least in the first book. Like I like them throughout, but Mara and Luke, I absolutely love them together. That like it's just so well done, and I love how Luke is trying to, become a learn how to be like how to be able to teach his niece and nephew how to be a Jedi, not turning them into the dark side like Anakin did because of his, not being able to teach. So he goes to Jorah Sabayoth, and he's like this crazy Jedi clone who, like, the guy just nails the voice too. Like when he, does shit, you know. And Thrawn is an amazing villain. Um, I knew, like, I think I watched Rebels before I read The Hand of Thrawn first. I mean, the original time I read it, but I thought he was really well done. He was a great character, great villain. Him and Captain Pillion had a really good kind of relationship. I like that. Um, and he's just one step ahead, like a couple steps ahead most of the time. And he was a great villain, very well done. But like I said, all the storylines were really interesting. Leia on the planet, I'm getting the name, with the man, I can't remember their name. The aliens were like assassins for the Empire. But yeah, stuff like that was really, really well done, really interesting. And I really liked Leia too. She's, showing what she does, and she's really interesting. And I do like the aspect of showing like the New Republic and them building this thing, like, and it's very difficult. It's like even harder than, the rebellion, where it's like it's easier to bring something down than it is to build it. So but yeah, so basically that was pretty interesting. Some of these fucking politicians like piss you off. You're like, oh my god, like it's too it's too realistic at some points. I'm like just sitting here like, oh my fucking god, I hate these people. Like that I can't remember his name, the alien guy who's like always against whatever Leia's doing and is like um I don't know, like the alien senator, I can't remember his name or even what race he is. It's stupid. But yeah, I can't remember that. I literally was listening to these recently, but um he was like probably the most annoying character. I also didn't like I like the character. I want to make that clear, but I didn't like um when you see these books, you get it from different perspectives. And so you know what the characters are thinking, a good portion of the time, but then you show it from another character's perspective and they're like, I don't know if I can trust this person, whatever. And that was kind of annoying for me with Card. I loved Talon Card. He was a great character. I really liked him. And with like oh my god, what's his name? The Mon Calamari guy from Return of the Jedi, and him like hating smugglers and just being on this like bullshit. It really annoyed me, where it was like they could have easily helped the New Republic, but they hated smugglers so much. And I don't know if there's probably a reason for that in some other book or something that I just haven't heard of. But stuff like that was pretty annoying, where they're like, oh, I don't know if I can trust this guy, I don't know if I can trust that, when you know their intentions. And it's under like good writing, it makes sense. But just as like a reader or a listener, you're like, I know what I know what they're thinking, so that's not what's going on. And I think that's why it was really well done with also with Captain Pelion. Instead of like being in Thrawn's head, you're in Captain Pelion's, like thinking, what he's thinking, and not completely knowing all the plans and stuff like that. So that was that was pretty good. And like I said, I just don't like the whole New Republic stuff. I just think it's a big thing. Like both of them have to, in my opinion, um, like the New Republic and the New Jedi Order have to be like rebuilt from the, like, I guess kind of from the ground up. Like especially the Jedi Order. Um, and I think that they like work in parallel to rebuild them is really interesting, and kind of like trying to fix the mistakes of the past Jedi, and their I don't know, complacency, like just arrogance kind of thing. But I just like, I like both of those. But seeing that and then having Thrawn come in, and also having having Jorah Sabayoth, which is cool. They call him a Dark Jedi instead of a Sith, and they do that in another book too, like after, but they call other people Sith. So it was like, I don't know, but I thought that that was interesting, and just like how insane he was and everything like that. So very good villains overall. I'm kind of talking about the trilogy first, and I'll go into other stuff. But Mara and Luke was really good, like I said. But how she was like, I hate Luke, da 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 da. like I knew that they became like, friendly, whatever. And so I was like, when you listen to that, you kind of know where they're going. It gets a little annoying at first. You're like a character's gonna come around, but in the beginning, it's like when they're like, kind of, I don't know, assholes or whatever to the character you like. You're like, but and then you find out it's because of the emperor and all this shit. But um, their just relationship, especially at the end with them going to Mount Tantus and fighting Sabaoth, and like the clone of Luke was an amazing idea. I really really like that where the Emperor took his hand as a trophy. And that's how they also get Anakin's lightsaber back, which I really liked. And I liked how he gave it to Mara at the end. And it's just I really don't have any complaints about those books. I think that there was absolutely no better way to start the extended universe. Like I forget what it was originally called, but Legends. Now, and I think that like it was a great starting point. It absolutely was. Um, just like I said, only thing is like just some inconsistencies with the prequels and everything, but they didn't exist yet. So that's like it's interesting. Like it's not like I'm like completely out of it, but I'm like when you know what happened and they're kind of like guessing because it's before that, and you're like, it doesn't fit right. It's a little off, and it takes me a little bit out of it, not completely, but a little bit. But just the ending, them defeating Jorah Sabaoth, uh, Luke giving Mara her lightsaber, Leia having her twins, my dog right there, by the way. Um, and Han Solo doing his thing, with Lando and Wedge, and that makes me kind of want to listen to the Rose Quadrant books, um, which I do plan to do in the future. But anyway, so going into the Hand of Thrawn duology, I'll jump back into the trilogy if I think of anything else, but I don't know. But I think that this was a severely worse book. Not terrible, it was still pretty good. But with the first trilogy, like I mentioned, they would switch to different perspectives, and you would be like, it would be in an interesting point. You're like, but I never felt like, oh, like bring me back to this, because they were all so interesting. This book did not have that. I was always like, I want to see Luke and Mara. I want to go here. I want to see this. The first book, they're like a really basic plot where it just feels like it could have been like one big book because, well, not one big book, but just like he just didn't know what to do with them. So it's like set up, and then like for the last like I don't know couple hours of listening or reading or whatever, Luke's just like not doing shit. But I just felt like that was kind of a waste. Where I'm like, okay, I want to see what's happening with this, and then they jump into like some shit with Han Solo or Leia or whatever, and I'm just like sitting here like it's not as interesting. It just doesn't hit as hard, and I'm waiting for these moments. Hey, I don't know if you could hear that, but so I just felt like in that way it was worse, but it was still good. Like where I was, I wasn't like, oh, like this shit sucks. Like it's a slog to get through. I just felt like the story wasn't as there. Um, with all the characters, I'm not gonna say all of them actually because I really like the fake Thrawn angle. The bringing him back and it's like a con man and they explain all this shit. I thought that was really interesting. But a complaint I do have about those books is they suck Thrawn's dick way too much. Like, I don't know, it almost feels like the writer patting himself on the back. Like, Thrawn is an amazing villain, I get that. But like they're completely like, oh, he was a master. Like he never made any mistakes. He did this, he did that. Like, you know, thinking like that, oh, we can't trust each other because of this, and Thrawn's plan is because of that. And it's like, he was like a couple, like many steps ahead, and he did somewhat get you to do what you wanted, but he was not omniscient. They're acting like he's omniscient. He's God. He fucking knows everything that's going on. And it was a little annoying, especially when you know that it's not the real Thrawn. But even if it wasn't, I feel like I would have been like just annoyed because it was way too much of like just, oh, Thrawn was the greatest threat we've ever faced. da 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 da. And it's like, they mentioned that there are other threats like in other books. I like that they do mention that. They mention stuff like that. I don't remember a lot about the other books. I just remember like stuff like Callista and some stuff like that. But other than that, I really don't remember that much. I remember Leia's kids getting kidnapped, but either way, so they mentioned some stuff like that. But I just felt like Thrawn was an amazing villain. He really was. But they were just like he did too much. Like where they were like, you know, he was just like he couldn't make any mistakes, anything like that. But he did at the end of the first trilogy. That's how he died. But that was like a big frustrating factor for me in this. It just I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like I'm not trying to shit on it. Like the writing was still really good, but it was just like they were hyping up Thrawn way too much. But anyway, so that's like kind of the first book I thought was interesting. I was still interested in the whole Kahamas document. Kahamas, I think that's what it is, and all that stuff. But I really was interested in Luke and Mara because I knew they got together. Um, and some stuff like that. So I was excited to see this. I didn't like how long it was since the first Thrawn trilogy. I understand, like it wasn't really, nothing was really planned out like that. So, but I would have liked it if Luke and Mara got together sooner. But that whole plot with them and the Hand of Thrawn, uh, Empire thing was so well done, and their relationship was so good. I really loved it. I just wish, like, I know a lot of people want Mara Jade to come into live action, and me too, especially like if they get together because they're just so good together. Like, and just she's such an interesting character, and I just thought she was like really great, and just their chemistry is so good, and you wouldn't really think it would be because they're so different, but like the uh thing how they like can kind of like feel like they become one person where their minds are like I don't know, mixed together some shit, and how when Luke like thinks she died or something like that, he fucking almost goes Sith mode, like just I'll kill them all, like I'll do all this, and I'm just like, damn. And when like she's kind of talking to him about all these other women that he dated, and I knew about Callista, but they mentioned some other woman who I guess died, and I had no idea who the fuck that was. And they also mention how like Luke has been like kind of not himself for the past years or whatever, and that just felt like kind of like a way to excuse like him with those other relationships and stuff like that. But I just I don't know. I thought that was really good. I really like the moment where he's like, if we get out of this, will you marry me? That I just love that. I don't know, and it just like I said, their relationship was great. Loved them together. R2 is always great. I love having R2 with them. Um, and I I don't really have any complaints with that. I thought that was really interesting. I really like the I forget what their name is, but the birds uh like who could speak through the force and they could he could Luke could hear him. I thought that was really interesting and how they wanted Mara to become a Jedi, how she had to commit to that and then she could hear him and stuff like that. So I just thought that was really interesting. Um I can't really think of anything else at the moment besides, I like them getting together. I like the ending of that. Like I said, the second book was my favorite because it was just a lot more Luke and Mara, and that's what I was really interested in. But Card had some interesting stuff. I liked what they did with that and the Dark Jedi on Dagobah and all that, which is a little weird too. But whatever. I just thought that was really interesting. But I don't know. It was weird because I can't remember. Like I said, I don't remember that much, but I can't remember Card being in that much of the other books. I remember Mara was in the Jedi Academy trilogy, I think, and I'm just kind of sitting here like I don't think he was really in it or mentioned, and then they make it like he was such a big deal. Um, Not that he was such a big deal, but just like he was always kind of around. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like it just like they were apart for so long, and it was like then they were like, oh, we met back up, and it's just like old, just like I don't know, old times or whatever. Sorry, my dog's trying to find a comfortable place to sit, but Um, I just thought that was a little weird. The whole, oh my god, what's her name? The assassin lady who works for her, planet. It's like a secret group of like mercenaries, like these lady mercenaries or whatever. I can't remember their names, but she was really interesting. At first, I thought like, I wouldn't really feel that, but I really did enjoy her and Card's relationship. It was also really well done. Um, I just felt them together, and I like that. And I like how Han's like fucking with them at the end, where he's like, "Oh, you said what get you to join the rebellion? Or, I mean, the New Republic would be Leia. Like if Leia had a sister or whatever, and now you're with you found this girl." And he's just like, it's not like that. Whatever. He's like, "Yeah, sure, pal," but so that was really well done, and just like I said, I was absolutely like by far though my favorite part was Luke and Mara, just because I wanted to see who Luke ended up with. I knew he ended up with her. I guess I just kind of wanted to see how. I wish it happened sooner, like I said, just because it would have been interesting. Like there was that 10-year gap where it's like you know, and then they just fall. They not fall into each other, but like the pieces fall into place and they're together. And then the last book I listened to was Survivor's Quest. And I think I liked it better than the first the first oh my god, the first Hand of Thrawn duology. Uh but it was just the first half, and I've heard a lot of people complain about this. The first like half was really slow. The thing that really saved it for me, and what I've also read in like reviews saved it for them, was once again Luke and Mara. Their relationship was really good. I loved it. Like they just have chemistry, and the way the guy like voice acts is so awesome. I don't know if it's raining out there. If you can hear that, I'm gonna try to edit that out. But it was just absolutely peak. That was my favorite part. Their moments. The opening scene was pretty cool. And they brought in the oh my god, dude, I can't remember the droid's name, but oh my god, what the fuck's the droid's name? From episode one and the Clone Wars, I think those droids like with the shields, the roly poly ones. They had a pretty cool name too. I just can't remember how that was in the beginning. And Luke and Mar were like teaming up, and they were taking down this guy because Card is trying to turn straight or whatever. I mean, what is it? Honorable or honest? I can't remember what the exact term was, but what they say Han Solo became respectable. I don't know. I thought it was like a funny way of, not a funny way of saying it, but I liked the way that they said it, so I'm trying to remember. Respectable, I think it was, but um, so he's trying to end his relationships with all these like out of fringe members, and they didn't like that, so Luke's just like jumps out with her, and he does this whole thing where he pretends that he knew what this message was, and I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. Like I thought he actually knew it because Luke's like super powerful, which is also a thing you see between the original trilogy, like where Ben Kenobi says to Obi-Wan, I don't know why I'm calling him Ben because that's what they call him in the thing, but where they're like, you will become stronger, you will meet allies, like you have a long way to go. I did like that, how they were like talking to him, and he was like, I have to go now. This is the point where I have to cross over, like I can't hold it back anymore, and goodbye, basically. And while I kind of wanted more of them together, especially after the prequels, because there's so much I want to see. Like, I want to see when Luke finds out who his mother is. When like Anakin talking to Luke, like after sequels and stuff, like the prequels. I mean, stuff like that. Like, it's just not there. And I get like, because there's a long gap between the original trilogy and the prequels, and then it was like, you know, only like I don't know, maybe like 9, 8 years after the prequels till Disney bought it, made it all legends and stuff like that. So, but the Survivor's Quest brings up the Clone Wars a little bit, Battle of Geonosis, stuff like that. So there's some mentions of that stuff, the Trade Federation. So I enjoy that. But uh, like I said, that was just one thing I really wanted to see more of because I think that that's not as much done that I think could be really interesting. Maybe we'll get it at some point, like if we ever get more Luke in the in the Mandoverse or whatever it's called, because that shit was peak. I don't like it because I don't like where it's going in the future, but I like that. That shit was awesome. I like Ahsoka too. Ahsoka's one of my favorite characters. So I'm sorry, but I was just kind of thinking of Force Ghosts and then Anakin and anyway. But yeah, but most of it was Luke and Mara's relationship, and I thought that Evelyn was interesting, how she had these force powers and outbound flight, all these people were alive and they hated Jedi and all this. And when I was listening to it, I saw like recommended that there was a book called Outbound Flight and it was by Timothy Zahn. So I click on it. I'm like, what is this? This sounds interesting. And it says that Anakin and Obi-Wan were on the ship. And it's like, so I did that like maybe halfway through the book or something like that. And I was like waiting. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get a mention. We're gonna get this. We're gonna get that. And we never did. Not one time. They mentioned like, oh, there was a Jedi ship with the ring that I believe they use in episode three, the beginning of episode three, where he's like, this is I don't know. This is where the fun begins. Like that ship. And I was like, oh, maybe it was like Anakin or Obi Wan ship, and they'll find something. Especially when they were going to the Dreadnought. The villains also in that book were really good. Those fucking guys. The guy who does the voices, like they had this filter on him, and I fucking couldn't stand it, dude. I was like, at first, because you don't know that they're the villains. So I was like, I cannot listen to Outbound Flight if they're a part of it because they say that Outbound Flight saved them, and their voices are so fucking annoying. Especially like they had this filter, like I said, and it's just like grating to my ears, and I don't like it. But they were like fucking savage, dude. Like really evil villains, and I like that. I like the ruthlessness, and I like where Luke tries to you know doesn't kill unless he has to. But I like it when like he's not like a bitch basically, like where he's like I've tried everything I could try, like it's time to go, like where just goes crazy, like when he was trying to stop the guys, the aliens, and trying to talk to them and they wouldn't listen, so he just throws his lightsaber and fucking like kills a whole bunch of them. That was kind of cool. Like I thought that that was cool, and I like that. I like that, because a lot of superheroes and stuff they don't do that shit. So it's just I'm usually in kind of more uh reading, not reading, but like watching and stuff like that. So I just thought that was kind of a nice change. Although Jedi, were never really against killing. They were peacekeepers, but they did do what they had to do. Um, yeah, but like I said, it was mostly Luke and Mar that got me through it. And the main part was like I said, either way. So the first half was just really slow, and it was like who done it, and I just could like even Luke's like, oh, this is like my head's starting to, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, there's like 10, 20, 30 minutes of exposition, them like thinking about who could it be, who's guilty, whatever. And they also had this red herring where the Empire of the Hand are like, one of the stormtroopers is like, is like, oh, I can't wait to fight the Jedi, and he's like, I promise you'll get your chance, and then nothing ever happens, like where they turn like they're villains, like they're secret villains or anything. So I just thought that was really weird. Although to be fair, I haven't listened to I've like 2 hours left, and it's like a short story about the Empire of the Hand right before this, so maybe they mentioned that, but I just felt like that was really weird where we got that one scene and then nothing else. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. I also like Luke trying to find records of the past Jedi Order, and something I really like that I do wish that they don't like bring back with the Jedi Order is the attachments. I like the attachments. I like at the end when he's like, this is the new Jedi Order, and we're not forbidding this. Like me and Mara were meant to be together. Like we make each other better, and better Jedi, just better people, and because of that, I think that I prefer that. I like that. Um, there are reasons for no attachments. I get that, but like, I don't know. There's just like the prequel Jedi. I don't know, man. Like I forget exactly what the words were. Like, where people how they explain. They grew complacent and uh stopped completely. Following the will of the Force and stuff like that. So I just thought that was interesting. And I can't remember. Oh yeah, in the Mandalorian, uh, where he's like Jedi can't form attachments. I really didn't like that when Luke does that. No, that was Book of Boba Fett. My bad. But I just didn't like that. I don't like that. I want there to be a new Jedi Order. I mean, once again, it goes into the sequel, so I'm going into like shows and stuff. But just the original Legends. I think I've heard of some things like in the series that I don't agree with, like that they do or whatever. But I just think overall it's done so much better than the sequels, in my opinion. Once again, if you like it, honestly, good for you because I wish I did. But um, sorry, and I'm just going on a rant about Star Wars in general, but I think that's about it. I like the villain, the not the villain. I mentioned that Jinsler, how his sister was a Jedi and how they didn't really have a relationship because forbidden attachments and all that. I really wanted to know like that they had a fight before she left for outbound flight, and like he's like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, and then we never get it explained because he forgives her and he's like, why did I hate her this whole time, da 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 da. And I just wanted to know what that fight was about because it said like he never met her except for one time when he saw her um going somewhere, I think while she was still Padawan or whatever, but something like that. So I just felt like I really would have liked to hear that. I don't know. Maybe there's something with that in the Outbound Flight prequel. I don't know. I've heard that the Outbound Flight prequels are better, and then it has Obi-Wan and Anakin. I don't know how big they are in that, but I do Obi-Wan, Anakin and Obi-Wan are some of my favorite characters. Uh, I just, I think Anakin's my favorite. I don't know why. I just love like the Clone Wars show and all that shit. I just think, it's cool, whatever. But anyway, I'm just going off on a rant now, but whatever. I'm just gonna talk about whatever I want. Um, but yeah, like I said, so I like that, and I'm, just hoping we can get some more stuff like that. And maybe someday we can get some like some more legends, like Disney will make it so that we can have some alternate universe stuff. And I really want to see that. I want to see where the day comes where that happens and I can you know just it's, I don't know, multiverse stuff, whatever. But I just want to see some stuff like that, and I think that would open up Star Wars to a whole new level of people who didn't like the sequels and how they ended up. Giving them a chance to have alternate stories and continuing this stuff on or whatever. But like I said, I don't really have anything else to say about the books. If you have any recommendations for any Legends books or canon, whatever, if they're good, let me know and I'll definitely check them out. I still haven't seen Andor season 2. Maybe I'll watch that and make a video about it. I don't know. Um, but I doubt even anybody's watching this far at this point because I'm just ranting. But if you let me know what's your favorite Legends book. Um, what do you, I don't know. I just who's your favorite Jedi? Let me know or don't, whatever. But that's about it. Peace.